This is a session on Amazon CodeGuru, which is one of the cloud service from AWS, facilitating automatic code review. So the tool can help you to automate the code reviews, and it can also perform some analysis on your existing code base to detect any. So I hope we can. So myself, I am Vishnu. I am from Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala state. I am a .NET programmer working with the different cloud technologies. So I have a channel where you are watching this session, and also on YouTube, also a podcast in the same name, which is Coding Talk with Vishnu, which is available on all platforms. So you can check out both my podcast and YouTube channel, and there are a lot of episodes and audio podcast there which had conducted in the past, and those features different cloud technologies like AWS, Azure, and the Google GCP cloud platform. So feel free to check out all those things if you are interested. Also, I have a meetup group where I conduct these sessions regularly, so that is available on Meetup. The group name is Cloud Computing, Coding Talks Cloud Computing, so which is available from the Meetup group as well. So all the sessions that I am taking, that will be available on my YouTube channel, and also the audio podcast will be available on all the different platforms. The name is Coding Talks with Vishnu. So both are same, like the Coding Talks, the YouTube channel and the podcast. And the session I'm going to plan today is nearly around 1.5 hours probably. So I will try to finish it as fast as I can. The general intention of this session is to give you an idea of one of the code review and analysis tool from Amazon, which is called the Amazon CodeGuru. So this is very helpful to detect the code anomalies and also some of the security issues that are related to your code. Then it can also provide some of the recommendation based on the best practices. So this is a machine learning based service which can provide kind of recommendations based on some of the findings it has. So we'll look on all those things as we going through the session. Then if you have any doubt while having the session, please feel to raise questions through the chat window, so I can answer that. Then we can start the session. So that's all about myself and a quick overview of how the session is going on. There will be no slides on the session. This will be a demo based session. So thanks everyone for attending this session, and those of you who are watching later, a big thanks to you all for watching this session. And so we can start. So let me share my screen and then start. Okay. So what you are viewing now is the AWS console. Those who are new to the cloud computing, I am just giving a quick context of how the cloud computing looks like and why we are opting for that. So the traditional way of developing software is like we spin up the environments in our local organization, and that leads to a lot of expenditures, especially from the point of setting up those infrastructure, and also for scaling and maintaining those infrastructure. There is a lot of expense which needs to spend from the part of organization. So as the programming model evolved, then there comes the concept of cloud computing, where just like we use electricity or some form of other services from a from a common provider, like we use internet or electricity. Similar way, we can use the cloud service from different vendors for our development activities. So these cloud services provide a rich variety of services which can help our programming, which can help to develop our application. It can serve different needs, and it can also create different environments quickly, so that we can develop the application in a more agile and more flexible way, rather than following a kind of a waterfall approach. So here the approach is like, when you use a service from the cloud provider like AWS, you are actually paying for what you are using and not anything related to the infrastructure and all. So that means you don't have to keep any infrastructure cost or existing maintenance staff to maintain these infrastructures in place. Whenever you need some service, you can quickly sign up, you can use that service, and once you no longer need that service, you can simply delete that service at all. So like that, there are a lot of services, around 175 plus services are available from Amazon. They have divided that services into different categories. So if you are new to the cloud computing, and if you want to try out how the cloud computing looks like, you can sign up a free account. Just search for AWS free account sign up, and once you sign up, it's a simple process. You just need to provide a credit card. That is for verifying that actually a genuine person is using the system. So once you provide that credit card, you won't get charged for anything unless you are exhausting the limit. So you can simply sign up using your credit card. You won't get charged for anything, and once you sign up, you will land it to this page. So already I have taken a lot of sessions on a bit more detail about how the signups looks like. If you are still facing any difficulty, you can check out the AWS documentation on to sign up a free account. Basically, it's a simple and straight-away process which anyone can identify easily. So that way you create an account, and once you logged into the AWS console, you will get a screen similar to this one. So this is the AWS console. Here I can interact using an user interface from a browser to the different services inside AWS. So there are different services, each catering to the different needs of the application development. So they have categorized these into different sections. So if you click on the services, you can view a list of different type of categories here. And also if you click on the if you go to the AWS main page, so if you click here, so the screen looks a bit different from recently they have changed the screen. So if you look my past demo, the screen looks a bit different. So this is the up-to-date screen as of now. So there they have categorized these different set of around 176 plus services into different categories. So if you are interested in having, if you need a service like storage or something, you can check out the storage here. Similar way, there are different other, if you need a database, you can check out here. So this screen will be a constantly evolving screen. So the next time when you look into this screen, might be there might be a probability for a change. So that is usual. So basically the idea is they have different services and they have categorized that into different groups, so that you can easily navigate to any one of those services. If you want a service from Amazon related to machine learning, you can click on here, and you can find the different machine learning services that are there. So the service which we are going to look on today is actually a machine learning based service which is called Amazon CodeGuru. And by looking at here itself on the title and the subtitle, you can understand that It provides intelligent recommendation for building and running modern application. Now we can understand that it provides recommendations for our code. So recommendations for building and running modern applications. So whenever we develop an application, especially modern application, it's like a kind of an agile fashion where the requirements constantly coming up, and we will be following an iterative model, like picking some of the features for a time period. Basically, it's called sprint in programming world, sprint in application development world, and then once we complete that sprint, we will be deploying those those features which we selected for that particular sprint, and that completed on iteration. So similar way, it will be kind of an iteration model. It's not like where how we see in developing a building, where we initially collect all the different requirements and start from there. No, such an approach is what usually followed earlier, and that approach is called the waterfall approach. But because of the nature of the application getting constantly evolved, the teams can't follow a waterfall approach. So nowadays they are mostly follow the agile model. So when such an application development happens within a team, especially when there are a lot of members involved in the team, so there is a requirement for a tool like this Amazon CodeGuru or something similar recommendation tools that can help to improve our code quality. So next I will show you a basic structure of basic flow of how an application development looks like. So if you look here, initially we will collect the requirements. So that is not covered in this particular slide slide. So initially for an application development, we will collect requirements from the client. Client needs a certain set of features like a user screen or a login screen or password reset screen or something like that. We prioritize, and then we add that as user stories. Then we means the development team actually starts coding. So once the coding is completed, we need to verify that okay, the code that which we have developed as an application developer must be in compliance with the organization and the security requirements, as well as it should follow the best standards that are applicable to that particular coding language. So that is where the code reviews comes in place. So almost all the organizations follow an approach by which they use some form of tools like the Bitbucket or the GitLabs or Azure DevOps or something, Jira, or some sort of a code management and review tool where they can track these different activities in one place. So from the requirements gathering to break up into user stories to coding and to build and test and development, everything they can look in from that single interface. So that provides a rich interface, a rich set of informations from the dashboard, so that the organizations based on that dashboard visualizations can take major decisions. So they can just look on that dashboards and can understand how things going on. So inside that so that's the step these DevOps systems covers, from requirement gathering up to the deployment. So in between, once we develop the code, and there is a stage before the code gets actually deployed. So there we need to review the code which we have developed. So the code review you can do either it's as a manual process. Someone can sit, look on these codes, and they can review that. So that is an approach, and that will work fine if the teams are small and only a certain limited set of projects are there in an organization. But when the project gets massively high, especially in the case of developing these different kinds of microservices where they have a lot of different microservices in place. So some sort of automated review mechanism will be good for the teams to easily develop and test the application. So the one advantage by implementing such an automated code review and analysis in place is that you don't need to depend on a particular person or a reviewer to do all those sort of reviewing in place. So those of who are working with the manual review, they can easily understand how much difficult it will be, especially when there is a tight deadline happens. The reviewer will be busy in different meetings, and maybe he is working on a set of different other tasks and he need to review all this, and at those moments the developer needs to wait a long time for the PR to get approved from that peer reviewer. So that is the one disadvantage with a manual review in place. So having an automated code review like this can very quickly and fastly do a review, and it can provide intelligent suggestions based on the up-to-date ML standards. So this Amazon, being its platform, they have a lot of different recommendations and practices. They have evolved over the different period, and they consolidated all that, and along with the help of machine language and by the means of integration that with the latest standards, they can provide a more accurate code review and analysis rather than a manual reviewer can do. So that's one advantage. Another thing is you can easily iterate. Like once you raise a PR and if you identify some code review issues, you can quickly change that and you can do a recommit. And once you recommit, automatically this services like CodeGuru can do a reanalysis of the same code and can provide much meaningful code review and more analysis insights. Analysis in the sense like how your application going to use the CPU and memory in the actual environment. So that kind of analysis, that kind of profiling can also be done using this kind of tool. So this same system can be integrated with other existing DevOps systems as well. So that means if your organization is using some existing system like GitLabs or Bitbucket or something, or you have your code existing in repositories like GitHub or some other sort, Bitbucket or some other sort of repository mechanisms, this AWS CodeGuru can connect to those repositories and can do the review and analysis as well. So we will look on all those things as we going through the session. Now you understand what's the relevance of using the CodeGuru. So we can completely ignore this CodeGuru and can do a manual review by using a human or some sort of a developer who is expert in all these things. But the challenge there is he can't able to scale that much high to meet all the different changes that are quickly going on in a team, and sometimes the developer may need to wait for a certain period of time for to get the PR approved, and also that's all challenging when it comes to development. And another thing is when we do a manual review, that can lead to a human error as well. So these systems using machine language and through the help of automation can do a much more consistent and accurate code review rather than a human can do. So that's a general understanding of how the Amazon CodeGuru is going to integrate into your application. I will show one more slide, and after that we can go more details into Amazon CodeGuru. So this is a development workflow with CodeGuru, which I got from Amazon websites itself. So this is the code repository. As an application developer or as a application development team, we will be committing our code to this repository. There will be multiple repositories as well. So from here, the CodeGuru service can detect whatever changes in each commit occurs, and it can do an analysis within 5 or 10 minutes, and it can provide recommendations. So that recommendations can be checked by the developer, and they can make additional modification, so that once all the different actionable recommendations and visualizations get solved, then they can ensure that okay, their application is in a stable and a production ready stage. So that's how a developer workflow will looks like. So you can just focus on these two sections, like the code repository, the CodeGuru service, and the actionable recommendation. Ignore all the different other parts. Basically, these are all what happens in a development workflow. And also another thing is, those who are interested in identifying how much stable and how much production ready a code is, that can also be identifiable with the help of a visualization. Sometimes we tend to ignore some of the issues that can happen inside our code base, especially when doing a manual review. So the code review CodeGuru service can potentially detect those kinds of irregularities and anomalies, and can provide actionable recommendations. Now we can look more detail into the CodeGuru from the Amazon console itself. So that will be better than explaining in a slide. So we can go there. So if you are interested in spinning up, just feel free to sign up, and then select the machine learning, and then you can go into the Amazon CodeGuru. Another way by which you can access this service is, once you are in the console, you can simply do a search with the CodeGuru title, and that also immediately pop up the particular service. So you can simply click here, and that will open the Amazon CodeGuru page. So from the screen itself, you will get a quick idea on what this Amazon CodeGuru is doing. It's actually improving the application quality and performance by providing intelligent recommendations. So you are responsible for fixing all those recommendations and suggestions. CodeGuru can only provide recommendations, so the fixing is up to you as an application developer, or it is up to the team. Now, one thing you need to understand at this stage is, currently the support is limited to Java and Python application. So if you have a code base that is developed using some other languages like JavaScript or C# or something else, currently that is not supported in Amazon CodeGuru. So I have tried a C# code, and I have tried to analyze that with the AWS. The finding and the output is like this CodeGuru not able to find any recommendations for those code bases. So you need to be aware that currently at the time of this recording, the support is limited to Java and Python. Maybe Amazon thinks that that's the most commonly used languages, or maybe some other reason, but there is a possibility that support for other languages also can happen in future. So if you look into the forum for this Amazon CodeGuru, you can understand that lot of developers are requesting support for other languages as well. So probably we can expect support for other languages as well in the coming days. So at the time of recording, please check up the documentation of the Amazon CodeGuru, so that possibly if you are watching this session at a later point of time, there will be support for other language as well. Then along with that, this Amazon CodeGuru is especially useful if you have an application with either of these languages at the time of this recording, and also if you have your applications using any of the other AWS services at all, like the EC2 instance or AWS Lambda or AWS storage or some other form of AWS services. I already told at the beginning of the session that there are a lot of services, like 176 and more services from Amazon. So if your code or if your application is using any one of those different services, and mostly from AWS, then this Amazon CodeGuru will be a good choice, because it can provide intelligent suggestions and best practices for AWS based services along with this Java and Python application. One example is like if you forgot to store your keys or secret accessible keys, which are highly confidential and highly secure in nature. Sometimes while developing and in the flow of deadlines, developers tends to hard code those informations within the code base itself, which is not a good practice. And such kind of deviations can be identified with the help of Amazon CodeGuru, and Amazon CodeGuru can provide automated code reviews, and it can generate recommendations so that you will be forced to fix those before it is actually going to production. So the choice is up to the team, but still it can provide the recommendations. Now we are going to dive a bit more detail into the Amazon CodeGuru. When we say Amazon CodeGuru, it has two main components. One is the CodeGuru Profiler and another one is the CodeGuru Reviewer. So just by viewing the screen itself, we will get a good picture of what these two different components looks like. So this CodeGuru Reviewer is of utmost importance, especially from the point of review mechanism, where if you are having an organization where you are doing a manual review and you have Java and Python code and you have a lot of AWS services you are using in your application, then CodeGuru Reviewer can nearly remove the manual peer review in place, and it can generate automated reviews based on your code. So that is what the CodeGuru Reviewer is doing. So it can help you to connect to different repositories where your code resides, like the GitHub, AWS CodeCommit. AWS CodeCommit is similar to the GitHub, where you can store your code in repositories. And another one tool is called the Bitbucket. That is a service from Atlassian. They are the services. They have different other services like the Jira and all. Hope you are already familiar with that. So they have the Bitbucket repository in place where you can store your code in different repositories. So this is one repository which I have created for this demo, which is called the POC project. Currently there is nothing inside that repository. I have just created that repository and you can view that. Similar way, your organizations or your team have your own repositories. What all repositories are currently supported, we can look it when we go deep into the demo. So from an overview is like GitHub, AWS CodeCommit and Bitbuckets are currently supported. Now let's try it. We can associate a repository and can see what all options are there. So I can just click on associate repository and we can view all the currently supported repositories that are available for AWS CodeGuru. The supported repositories are AWS CodeCommit, Bitbucket, GitHub or GitHub Enterprise Cloud and GitHub Enterprise Server. So these are the one currently supported. So that means if you have your code base existing in some other form of services. Then at the time of this recording, AWS CodeGuru doesn't support those repositories. You may need to migrate those code base into either one of these repositories before proceeding with CodeGuru, particularly if you want to use CodeGuru as the review mechanism. Maybe at a later point of time, more support for other services will come in place. So if I want to, let's select, I have a repo already in place called the Bitbucket. So let's select that one, Bitbucket. The next thing is I need to select a connection to the Bitbucket, because these two are different services. This AWS CodeGuru is an entirely different service from a different provider, and Bitbucket is another provider, another service from a different provider called Atlassian. So you need to create a connection. So you can create a Bitbucket connection. You can click on this one, create a Bitbucket connection. So you can provide a connection name, my Bitbucket connection. I have already created a connection in a different name. Let's create a new connection using this one, connecting to the same Bitbucket, and then can click on connect to Bitbucket. Okay. So already I have created a Bitbucket app. So Bitbucket app is a concept inside AWS to create a link for your connection with the Bitbucket. So each different connections to either of these different providers looks like a new app inside the AWS. So that's what this means. So because I have already created a connection already, I can select that one for the moment. You can add tags if you want to maintain different connections, and if you want to have a way by which you want to categorize or group your connection at a later point of time, especially when you automate these things using the CloudFormation, which is a kind of an ARM template which is used by the DevOps team. Then at that time you can use this tags concept. Tags is not used just for that deployment or categorizing purpose. You can have that for understanding about which code base is this, and you can have something like a dev or QA or something like those sort of informations also you can embed in tags, so that you can categorize these things in place. Then we can click on connect. I have ignored the tags altogether because I don't need that for the moment. So now the connection is established, and once the connection is established, possibly AWS will be able to retrieve all the repository that is inside my Bitbucket service. So let's look on here, and I can view the repository now, which is the POC repository. You can understand that there is nothing inside the repository as of now, but it is still able to maintain a connection to there. And then all the different other options are optional, but our data, whatever data which we are pulling from there, actually it's encrypted by default with an AWS key. But if you want to have additional encryptions, you can have that, but you can just leave this field as totally, and it's not need, there is no need to provide anything here unless your organization has a compliance requirement, like it should use a particular encryption in place. Then next we need to select a source branch. So it will load all the different branches from that repository. So let's see, it's actually loading the repository branches. Sometimes it will take a bit more time to find out the branches from that repository. Let's refresh this. I have already created a connection, so we can look into that one. Okay. Let's try to associate one more time. I think it's some temporary connection issue or so. I won't able to pull out all the branches from the repository. Yeah, now once I refresh, it is able to pull out the branch from my repository, which is here. Currently I have only master branch there, so it was able to pull out that information from there, and so I can provide this. Then the code review name, which is optional, but it will AWS will auto generate on for us, so this is fine for the moment. Then let's associate repository and run analysis. So to do the analysis, it should have some code inside there. Currently we don't have any code inside here, so what we are going to do now is to push some codes inside that repository so that we can see how it looks like. So I have downloaded a Java sample master code from GitHub, which is this is a public code that is available from there. So I'm going to commit this one. Why I selected this is the AWS CodeGuru has support for Java, and this code base has supported for AWS as well. So hopefully I think if everything is properly configured, the CodeGuru can generate some recommendations. So that's the intention. I'm going to push this particular particular code base into my existing repo. So I'm going to add that. I'm simply using a command line kind of approach to push these things. If you have an existing IDE tool in place like Eclipse or Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, you can do the same that way as well. So my Java code commit. Okay, then commit and push. So this will push my Java code into the Bitbucket repository. So this is the way by which the development team will be pushing each of their development changes incrementally. So each time when they push, the AWS CodeGuru can be configured so that it can run an automated analysis in place. For this demo, I am manually connecting to that repositories and I am showing you how it is doing an analysis manually, but in the actual environment, actual production environment, these things all happen automatically, so that the developer no need to bother about what is happening behind the scene. They can focus on their development. They can focus on their JavaScript development, and once they develop these things, they can verify that from their own perspective everything is working fine. So they need to do an analysis from their part as well. So whatever they are not able to find out, that thing CodeGuru is able to expect and find out. So that is the intention. So they need to test it from their side, and then they need to commit that. And we can have additional workflow as well in place, like if you want to have someone else to review that code, you can have the full freedom of include that flow as well. So that is up to the organization, but at some point the CodeGuru will review your code, and we are interested in identifying whether part that CodeGuru can recommend. So that is what we are going to see. Now I have committed the code base. Let's refresh this Bitbucket repo to see whether my code is reached there. So now my code has reached here. It's just committed 2 minutes ago. It's a Java code commit. Now let's use this master again, and then we can associate this repository and can run an analysis. So now it is from the status information, it's saying like CodeGuru Reviewer is creating an association with the POC repo which is there in the Bitbucket. After the repository is associated, a full repository analysis will be start. Keep this tab open until the full repository analysis is finished. So they are saying to keep this in start. So now you can see that the status is pending. It's doing an analysis at this time, 2042. So it's in progress. So meanwhile, once it's doing the analysis, we can look into the other sections, like what all things this CodeGuru can analyze, or what all things that can find out. So that part we can look into at this time when it is doing the analysis. So we are going to look on those things now. 1 second. Yeah. Okay, now you can follow the same approach I am working on in this demo. You can also go to the AWS CodeGuru official documentation, where you can understand what all things that is happening, what all things it can identify. So let's click on the features. So we are looking into the Amazon CodeGuru Reviewer. We can look into CodeGuru Profiler a bit later. So first we can look into the CodeGuru Reviewer. As we understood already, the AWS CodeGuru has two main components, the Reviewer and the Profiler, both two different things. So Reviewer is responsible for raising the recommendations based on the best practices, while the Amazon Code Profiler is responsible for identifying how much CPU your code is going to use, or how much memory, or such sort of things related to the system level profiling is what this Amazon CodeGuru Profiler is interested in, while the Reviewer is responsible for identifying the security secrets and all those things. So they have in the documentation they have categorized into different sections. First of all, as I already said, it can identify the issues in the Java and the Python code. It can also identify security vulnerabilities that we are unaware while developing our code base. And then the resource leaks. Sometimes we tend to ignore the resources being properly closed, especially when using the data, something like a stream or a database or file system. If you not properly close the resource, then resource leaks can happen. Sometimes memory leaks can happen. Then another sort of issues that can happen in the code base is concurrency, where two set of instances working on a common entity like the database or some file system, we need to ensure that it is not processing duplicately. So concurrency issues will be there. Then incorrect input validations. So we need to identify what all inputs we are actually providing, and if you tend to ignore the validating those inputs before it is actually going to process inside your code base, then sometimes if the user is entering some invalid input, or that can make the system work in a different way, so which is not good in production. So that is called input validation. And some of the deviations from using best practices of AWS APIs and SDKs. So this is what I already mentioned. If your code base has Java and Python and it is already using a set of different AWS APIs and SDKs, then definitely this CodeGuru Reviewer can provide you a great deal of recommendation probably. So we have already done this part. To begin review, you can associate your code repositories on GitHub Enterprise, Bitbucket, or AWS CodeCommit with CodeGuru. So now in this demo, you are actually analyzing the code from within the CodeGuru, but you can do the other way around as well. Like if you have a existing GitHub or GitHub Enterprise or Bitbucket in place, you can have the you can have the integration from that those services as well. So if you have something like a GitLabs or GitHub Enterprise in place, from the marketplace you can add this Amazon CodeGuru and can integrate to this as well. So similar way, you can integrate in either way, from the CodeGuru or from the other way. So you can check out your existing GitHub or GitHub Enterprise to see whether any existing integration with native integration with the CodeGuru is there available, so that you can just click a few things and you can integrate. So now the other way around, from the CodeGuru I was able to connect to the Bitbucket repo, and they have provided a set of very easy to use interface by which I can just click on next and provide some information, and I was able to connect it. Rather than doing something manually, which I may not able to understand, especially if I don't have a technical background. So you can very easily, even if you are not having a technical background, still if you have some idea on connecting these things, you can still work on these things properly. And next thing is like the security detection. The AWS CodeGuru can able to find out the best practices, and one thing is this security recommendation. So whenever we develop an application, especially if it is a web application, then it is good to follow this OWASP, which is a recommendation from OWASP based on the current security vulnerabilities and associated things. So whenever what I used to show is, whenever we develop the different web applications, then at those times some external teams like a security detection team or something will analyze this using a tool like OWASP and do a scan on our code base, and can identify the security related deviations. Now that same thing is by default integrated within the Amazon Code Reviewer, so that it can automatically identify those common vulnerabilities in place, and it can also suggest some of the AWS security best practices as well. So the recommendation is you should have your Java and Python within these versions, from Java 8 to Java 11 and Python 3 and above. Then the security related categories which Amazon CodeGuru is able to identify is one is the OWASP 10. So it can check for top web application security risk such as broken access control, injection, a SQL injection related ignorance or something in your code, and the data integrity failure as well. Similarly, it can also check the AWS API security best practices. Then the Java crypto library best practices, that is particular to the Java, and similarly to the Python there are specific best practices that are applicable to that languages. Those also can be identified. Then the log injection. So if you have a logging in place that is using log4net or something similar sort of logging mechanism, and if you have some sensitive data that are accidentally logging inside, that also can be identified. Then input validation can also be identified here. So the support is currently limited to Java and Python, but probably from the forums I could see a lot of developers are requesting for other services as well. So probably there will be other support for other languages will happen in the near future. Next one is like the secret detection. This is one area where developer, when developing the code, tends to store the secret in their code base, in their repository itself. Maybe if we done this in a improper way, and if we code something security secret and all those inside this code base, then probably this code reviewer will be able to identify those things. Next one is the code quality, and these are some of the best practices: correct use of AWS API like the polling pagination, then the concurrency practices, inconsistency. So it can analyze the different coding patterns inside a repository. So that when there is a deviation that happens from the standard practices, like if you're using a class improperly, or if it is not, if you are having a lot of redundancy in your code, possibly the AWS can identify all these things. AWS CodeGuru can identify these things. So these are some of the recommendations, sample recommendations that are shown in the screen share. So we can either fix it, or if you feel it's not relevant for your application, then you can ignore that as well. So these are kind of an automated reviews. Then the incremental code review. So in an agile model, development happens incrementally, so lot of commits and pull requests can happen. So all those can be incrementally reviewed, and that is another thing. Then these all are the important thing. Then the GitHub has native integration with this AWS CodeGuru. So you can connect from within your GitHub to this AWS CodeGuru as well. Second important component is AWS Amazon CodeGuru Profiler. Profiler, like it is mentioned in the documentation, it is helpful for identifying applications performance optimization. So some of the codes which we tend to create in our application, we tend to code in while developing our application, may be working properly, but it might be having some expensive lines of code which overuse CPU, or it do unwanted memory leaks or something. So those all things CodeGuru can identify and can provide suggestion. So that way you can reduce the CPU utilization and perform the computation. So these are not based on a set of fixed rules that Amazon have in place. It's kind of a way by which they have a set of best practices and things they possibly generated through the different stages of development, and they have that things in place. But along with that, a machine learning kind of thing also is there. We can look into how this CodeGuru is actually identifying these all things soon in the demo. But this is part that can done. It can profile the application, so it can show something like this. Next, we can look into so these all are the different things which can provide. Then the anomaly detection. So it can also continuously analyzes your application profiles in real time and detects anomalies in your behavior of the application and the methods. So if some different patterns is there, it can identify that as an anomaly. So these are all the major important things which these two components can do. So Amazon CodeGuru has two main components: Amazon CodeGuru Reviewer, which is responsible for reviewing your code base and provide a peer review kind of recommendation, automated, and similarly it can also profile these things. Next, we can see in the demo we associated our repository which has our JavaScript code there. Let's see whether it was able to identify the analysis. So the repository which we connected, it's the message is showing like it's done the analysis completed, and we can view the recommendation. So let's click on view analysis. Let's see whether any suggestions are provided by there. So lot of suggestions are provided. This is not a code that I have developed or something we have tried. This is just copied from the GitHub, which was publicly available, and I have just pushed that to see what all sample recommendations it can provide. So a lot of sample recommendations it is providing, like one is like in S3 sample.java. There is in line 65, client constructors are now depreciated in favor of using builders, and to create the client, consider using a builder implementation instead. So these sort of recommendations, if an automated system can provide, that will be definitely for you or even myself. Sometimes when I develop, I feel like, okay, I have done in the best possible way, but when some sort of automated systems generate these kinds of things, I was able to understand, okay, I will be able to understand, okay, something error has happened there, so I can improve my code in that way, and I can improve the code quality myself, and next time when I do similar sort of things, I can consider those things instead of having a wrong approach that is fixed in my mind. So that is what it is. These automated systems are useful. So now it's saying like we should use the builders instead of the client constructors, but this code is actually using the client constructor. We can see, click on here to see whether that code, which code is what. So this is the code which is responsible for that recommendation. So Amazon S3 is equal to new Amazon S3 client. Might be the developer who is developing this may be following something, an old documentation, or he may be not aware of a new builder there. So now as a developer I can understand, okay, new builder is there and I can implement. So similar way we can view the different other recommendations as well. So if you scroll down, I think around how many recommendations it has identified. So nearly around 6 recommendations it has identified. Then Amazon. So we can look into one more thing. S3 sample line 185. This line of code contains a resource that might not be closed properly. This can cause a resource leak that slows down or crashes your system. So consider closing the following resource writer. So we can just see. I don't know how Java works, but still you can see how it looks like. I'm a .NET developer, so let's see. So this is the line responsible for that thing. So that also is notified here. So once we identify these things, the good thing is we can check out the some other sources like Stack Overflow or something other way, and we can see the best practices by which how we can implement these things in a proper way. So if this recommendation is very important. So that is what the analysis looks like. So similar way you can do the profiling as well. So time is already gone out. So what we can do is at the time of logging into the Amazon CodeGuru, Amazon Web Services itself given a sample for both the code review and the profiling. So profiling also you can follow the similar way. There will be associating that profiling with your code base. So if you look on here, AWS CodeGuru initial screen. So here under this getting started, we have earlier chosen this CodeGuru Reviewer. So similar way we can select the CodeGuru Profiler, and we can click on get started, and you can connect that to the profiling group that you want. So that the profiling to happen, you should select a computing platform, because there is what this profiling, your actual application, how it is running on that particular platform, how it is going to behave. So you need to choose a profiling platform. So if you are developing a code base and that is running on an EC2 is actually a virtual machine, or an on-premise server, something like a web application or a background service or something which needs to be run inside some form of an EC2. Like EC2 is the elastic compute, which is actually a virtual machine. In AWS they call that as EC2. So if you are developing a web application or something, some sort of those things, you can select this one. And because this one profiling is actually identifying the memory leaks and the system usages, CPU system usages and all sort of things. So it needs an actual environment. Otherwise it will be kind of a hypothetical analysis only that can generate. So it needs to run your actual application inside that environment, that target environment. Only then it can identify how much actual CPU's usage is going to happen there. So that is why it is asking where you want to run this profiler. So you can select that. And similar way, if you are following a microservice kind of approach, like using AWS Lambda or something, so you can select that Lambda as well. So one thing I noticed when looking into the case studies of this Amazon CodeGuru is several companies are actually having a lot of microservices, and they are actually using this CodeGuru for reviewing their different microservices. So you can verify my statement by going to the AWS CodeGuru customers section here. So this is the AWS CodeGuru documentation. So here, if you look into the customers section, you can see how different customers are actually using CodeGuru to actually reviewing their code base. So here, if you scroll down, you can see this client and Wheelpros and Atlassian, and all the different other companies are actually using this CodeGuru for their. So you can have a look on how they are using this thing. You will get additional information from the forum as well. So there is a forum that is particularly connected for Amazon CodeGuru. If you look into that forum, you can see how the developers are actually using this and how what all challenges they are facing and how that can be resolved. All those things you can view from the forum. But if you want to see a quick overview of how different companies are actually using this CodeGuru, you can have this. So one thing is like if you look here, especially from the point of microservices, usually big organizations who have a lot of microservices in place. So and if they are using that microservice, if they have developed that microservice using AWS Lambda or something, definitely they can choose something like this Lambda. So this is a serverless based thing, Lambda, which is in Azure, what we call as Azure functions, and in Google we call that as Google functions. So that similar thing is what in AWS, Amazon Web Services, called the Lambda. Here it's following a serverless kind of concept where you are actually paying for what you are actually using. All the different services in cloud is actually what we are paying only for what we are using. But here the difference is like in Lambda, we don't bother anything about the infrastructure or the server at all. We just focus on actual what we want to run. So Amazon can help us to create a Lambda function. We can write whatever we need to write inside that Lambda function, and then it can do that serverless kind of thing where we don't bother about what's going behind the scene, what's the infrastructure and all. At the time of running, our code, what we are writing inside that AWS Lambda will be running, and we will be charged only for that particular running. There are different pricing models there. If you want to have a Lambda pricing, like kind of a constantly on Lambda, you can have a different pricing model as well. But generally, what you are writing inside the AWS Lambda, you are actually paying for what you are actually using at that time. So here you don't need to bother about what's the associated VM in place, or what's the things behind working there and all. You don't need to bother anything about that. So you can just focus on the actual function as a code kind of an implementation. So if you have your organization code a lot of microservices in place, then Lambda will be a good and if it is running on Lambda, then you should select the Lambda. So that way you can create a profile, and it will take some time, similar to this review process that happened. It took around 5 to 10 minutes nearly. Sometimes it can much faster depending on the queue or the load in AWS, but generally on an average 5 to 6 or 5 to 10 minutes it should take, and then it can generate the profile as well as the review mechanism as well. Now we can look into the some of the there are 2 samples each provided by Amazon, one for the code review and one for the code profiling. We can look into that as well, and then we can look into some of the general fact as well related to AWS CodeGuru, and then we can wind up. So if you click on the dashboard section again, so there are 2 things which you can, 2 profiling groups and 2 code reviews are there. One code review and 2 profiling groups are there. One is with issues and without issues. So this is already provided by Amazon AWS at the time of spinning up your CodeGuru. So once you sign up and once you log into the CodeGuru, you can already see these things in place. So we can look on how it looks like in the code review. So this is a ready-made project that is provided by AWS. So we can click on here. You see 4 recommendations are there. So one is on the application config line. It appears your code contains a hard-coded URL formatted database connection string. So such kind of things help attackers to bypass the authentication method. So we need to fix that. So similar way, other recommendations are also in place. Then you can have a look on this sample code demos to see how the code review looks like. So that for that you don't need to do anything. You can just log in to the CodeGuru and then you can select it. Once you sign up to the AWS and once you go to the CodeGuru, sometimes if your region is something like Asia Pacific or something, this CodeGuru is not available there. You need to select some else region like Asia Pacific or something. So AWS, some of its services are available only to some regions, but you can use that services from anywhere within the world. But one point you need to make sure is you need to select the appropriate region here. So because I am from Kerala, Thiruvananthapuram, Asia Pacific, Mumbai is near to me. But I have selected this Asia Pacific, and for that particular location CodeGuru is not available, was not available. So I selected a different region like US West, or I can also select this Asia Pacific, Singapore as well. So if you open some service and if you click on the region, all the highlighted ones here and all the faded ones are not available, and all the highlighted things are actually available there. So you can, based on that, you can select it. If you have some service available from within your region, then you can select that. Otherwise you should select the next nearest location. Next we can look on that profiling group as well. So this is on sample is with issues and another one is without issues. So we can look into with issues to see how that looks like. So it shows the CPU summary, CPU utilization and all. Then so some of the recommendation is recreation one is recreation of AWS SDK service client is happening. So we can click on that. According to the AWS CodeGuru, this is not good recreating this one. So they have collected, they have associated these recreation with a cost, and it's showing like it cost around $398 per year based on the CPU usage. Similar way it can provide a suggestion. So once you fix all these things, it will show something like this much cost has been saved, but it's based on an actual association with the actual CPU usage. So they have something like, okay, this much CPU usage, this much cost and all. So based on that it is showing, but we will get an idea from a cost perspective how much this unwanted cost, this unwanted codes can cause extra cost to our application. So that will be helpful, and along with that you can also fix these things, which is also a good thing. Another recommendation it is displaying, we can look into that as well. Second one is like excessive debug or trace logging, we can look into that as well. Your profile spent 4.83% of the runnable times on frames related to this issue, but we would expect less than 1% on a profile to be spent on these frames. So lot of debug statements were there. We need to ignore that to reduce the cost as per AWS CodeGuru suggests. So they also suggest some of the recreation of loggers as well. Then repeated Jackson object mapper creation. So these all are related to something specific to that code base. So if we can fix that, we can have the confidence that okay, our code is stable from the perspective of AWS CodeGuru. So I think we covered enough of these things. So all the things which I demoed in this session, it is based on the AWS console, and I associated a repository from the console, and that way I show you. But you can have the other way around. So you can do all this automated, provided if AWS CodeGuru supports those different services. Some of the supported services are Bitbucket is supported, GitHub Enterprise, GitLabs, and all those are supported. Similarly, AWS related all services will also be supported. More additional integrations with the different services will be coming soon, because whenever the S3 storage has started, it has a limited integration, and based on the requirements, more integrations started coming out. So hopefully in the coming days, more service integrations and more language supported would be there. At this stage, Java and Python is the only languages that are supported by CodeGuru, but I hope if I had an option to understand how my code looks like using this Amazon CodeGuru, especially when I develop in a C# or JavaScript, that would be much helpful, because some of these recommendations can help us to better code and can understand how we can better code. It's just works like someone who look our code and suggesting, okay, you can do these sort of things, and based on when it is provided by something like AWS, it's definitely trustable, and we will have a better practice in place, and we will have more confidence. So that's the reason why some of these companies are already using this in place. Hopefully these companies will having a lot of Java and Python based code, and they were using a lot of AWS services as well. So definitely adding this would be an addition. But if your code is not having any Java, if your code is not based on a Java or Python and it's not using any AWS services at all, then having this kind of Amazon CodeGuru is not effective at this point. But still you can have a try to understand all these things, because at a later point of time more additions will be coming, so at that time you can integrate. So that's all I plan to cover during this session. I hope it will give a good overview of all things. Apologies that it went a bit over time. I plan to stop that within 1 hour, but sometimes the way by which I take the session, it goes a bit longer. So if you want to try out this thing, first thing is sign up a free account and simply go search for CodeGuru here and log into there, and you can view the things. So that's all. So we can wind up the session. Thanks everyone who is watching the session live, as well as those who are watching the session later. Feel free to check out my podcast as well as my YouTube channel. There are a lot of past episodes as well connected with the different kinds of cloud technologies. So if you are interested, you can have a look on those things. Then the